The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Mannin Lines on. Open line through till 1. Texts 166 177. WhatsApp 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 13 68. Well, you heard the story about Isle of Man Post that the retail network is in jeopardy. That's the story. The chair of the post office said, basically, watch out. The retail network at risk. Can you imagine? The post office is going. Well, the banks are on the way out, of course, aren't they? Lots of other stuff has flaked off and just disappeared. Lots of the post offices have gone. And but the retail network at risk due to removal or potential removal of a number of services. Stu Peters, MHK, told an Economic Policy Review Committee it's going through great changes. And almost everything is a challenge following the transition of changing the business model from a letter delivery service to one which is focused on parcels, with My Card due to be replaced at the end of next year, meaning anybody who claims benefits or a state pension has to have their payments made into a bank or online account. The cards currently allow people to collect benefits or pensions in cash at the post office branches. Government says it's uneconomical to keep up with the declining trend. It's fewer than 3,000 people use the My Cards. If you're one of the 3,000, consider yourself a declining trend. So, as far as the post office is concerned, what do we glean from this? What do we understand from this? What exactly is going to happen with the post office? Do we consider it a service? I mean, they're talking about it now being basically a parcel delivery. Well, I suppose this Christmas is going to be interesting. See how many Christmas cards get sent. That's a declining number. Stu Peters, this is Stu Peters, MHK, with his view.
I think it's fair to say that the post office is going through great changes, and so almost everything is a challenge as we transition the business away from being a monopoly letters service to being mainly a parcel service. That's been an ongoing process for some years, but it does have its difficulties, it does have its challenges with it. Also the fact that our retail network is at risk in many ways because of the withdrawal of the My Card pensions payment thing, and also the DOI is talking about removing the vehicle licensing from us. So those are big chunks of our income at the moment, and managing those changes is a challenge to the executive.
Right, so given there are challenges, what have been the greatest successes this year?
Making a profit. Excellent. I would say.
Well, Jason Morehouse was there at the end, but that was Stu Peters. Is this something we have to accept then, that that's another piece, basically, is it regression all the time? Is there any element of progression in this? Are we just slipping into decay with this? So what do we do? The situation at the airport is unacceptable, says Bill. Says the message dropped in from yesterday regarding what happened on Sunday night with the EasyJet flights to Gatwick being basically boarded and then deboarded because of the situation regarding air traffic control. A message in from WhatsApp of 553. Alf Cannon does something and he can't win. It's unbelievable. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Between a rock and a hard place. Thank you for that. Well, he's certainly done something, hasn't it? Regarding the reshuffle, the Chief Minister says, Brian, I was watching Wolf Hall last night. There was a court jester at the side of the King. Which one's the court jester? I think it's about time we looked at ways of mitigating the air traffic control restrictions at Ronaldsway. My favourite solution is the adoption of remote air traffic control, where radar, radio and visual services are extended to Swanwick air traffic services. It works well for London City and Farnborough, says Paul in Macclesfield. Is that something you think we should do? But we got a note in yesterday saying they need 16 air traffic controllers at Ronaldsway to deal with the shift system and holidays and sickness and what have you. We have 8 at the moment, and also an air traffic control boss that isn't qualified to do civilian air traffic control, so he can't jump in the seat. Even the boss can't jump in the seat. So we have 8 air traffic controllers. You wonder who's the customer in this equation, don't you? We're the customer. We're paying for all this, and yet nobody's sorted it out. I mean, they come up with all sorts of reasons, or you could call them excuses, as to why we don't have enough air traffic controllers. But it's not like this is new. This has been going on for years now. So Paul in Macclesfield, is that if anybody else knows about the adoption of remote air traffic control? So where would they do that from? From Liverpool? Presumably they can access all the radar. Would it be cameras and what have you that are around the airport? Anybody knows, then call in and tell us. Text, email, call, WhatsApp. David's with us first today. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just regarding the new ministers now, their portfolios, I just wondered if each of the ministers is going to take some time, look at the old portfolio of the previous ministers and look at some of the decisions that may have been made or aspirations that's going to be stopped. And I'm sure the new DOI minister's not going to prioritise any roadworks down in the south of the island before they do them in Onken.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and certainly it's almost like Mr. Canada's given Michelle Haywood, she's the one who moaned about putting planting daffodils in potholes, and obviously now he said, well, you go and sort it then, see what happens.
Yeah, but I hope that, because normally you would have it's like 1 to 10 aspirations in the DOI. There must be at least 100 maybe around the island, because if you look at I went to a municipal association recently, and there's another one on Thursday night, which eventually the minutes will be in the public domain, but so I'm not telling a secret out there. The most of the thing from Tim Krugel at the meeting we had recently was to do with infrastructure, potholes, the untidiness of the island itself, and having a strategy to create something different next year. But now Mr. Krugel's gone to a position there with no portfolio. I'd love to find out what Mr. Krugel's going to do, because there are several things that need to be addressed. The other one I wanted to say was, Andy, regarding Stu Peters and the post office.
Yeah.
Dead against the cessation of my cards. People that I know who don't have bank accounts. You can believe it in this stage. I can believe it, but you can't. The government can't believe that people don't have bank accounts. And I'm not saying they all keep them under the mattress anymore, but it's not far away from that, is it?
And the thing is, David, I mean, who cares? If somebody doesn't want to have a bank account, it's not illegal. They don't have to have a bank account. Surely it's the government's job to adapt to the customers. It's to adapt to the clients. And if somebody doesn't want a bank account, that's it. Fair enough. Give them the money in cash.
Yeah, but Andy, have you ever tried to talk to government or get into the lower levels towards getting to a higher level to say, why are you doing this? Why do you need to do this? And I'll give you a prime example on that, is to do with the post offices. At the end of the day, they are struggling. The postmasters and postmistresses around the island are struggling. And if they take more work off them, or from Stu Peters' end there, the major one was is the tax disc. The amount of people have issues now in the UK, and we have with English vehicles come here and sit here for ages not having a test, is you don't know. But at least if you're walking past in the streets up and down the villages and towns and stuff like that, you see a tax disc out of date.
So do you think that this is the trend, that they're going to stop Manx tax discs and it will all go online?
Yes, I'm sure of it. They tried it years ago, and the politicians at the time said, wait a minute, you're creating somewhere where you can go to the local post office. I do it down in Onken there. We'll do shortly to register my vehicles and stuff like that. Say hello to them, how things are doing. Things are a little bit tight, and saying to them, would you take on a post office yourself if you had a chance?
Well, I mean, everybody seems to be, even when former MHKs, MLCs and ministers are leaving their post office, it just seems to be a one-way trend at the moment. People just seem to be leaving them.
Yeah, and it's not one of these issues. We're not a community service. I remember Stu Peters saying this the other day there. But there's an element in that. How many times do you see a postman coming? I've just had one on my door. Had a quick chat to him. I said, the major thing anyway, it's sunny out there and it's not raining, and he knows I'm alive.
Well, and that's the other thing, that there's a saying, isn't there? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. And if the post office shrivels up and blows away, everybody will be complaining about the fact, it was a hub for society, people used to have a chat, this, that and the other. And particularly when one of the government's main planks, and I don't want to overstate this, but their suicide strategy is that people need company. They call it mental well-being, for mental health and what have you. And if a post office is a prime example of where people go to feel better, to rub along with each other and to have a chat, then surely it is more than a commercial transaction, David.
Yeah. Well, when I go to the post office in Ogden, which I do probably infrequently, should do it more, I suppose, but at the end of the day, somebody says to me, I haven't seen your friend for a while, or I haven't seen somebody in the village, or Mrs. X or Mrs. Y hasn't been in to collect their pension. Should flag up something to you. It does to me. Ogden's still a community as far as I'm concerned, and that's what we do. We look after one another. And if there are issues, and there are issues out there all the time, we need to address them. And maybe some of these new ministers would come along to Manx Radio and say, review your portfolio. What was the other ministers going to do? Is that point of view your point of view? Especially in health. Well,
you can guarantee the new ministers will be invited onto Mannin Line, and we'll see when they get to us.
And we're all listening, Andy. That's the thing. On the island, we're all listening.
Well, that's it. And that's why the island... You remember that it's our differences that make us different. We are different. And this doesn't...
We don't have any big words anymore. I sometimes email in a little bit cross and say to them, what do you do? Don't be telling me you can't do it. What do you do to help a situation out? You know what I mean? How can you help? And especially as we're coming up to the winter, Christmas, I'm not talking about John today, or I will do when I talk to him in a few days' time there. But there's an issue there that really shocked me, where somebody within government could have helped somebody out but didn't do it. Didn't pass on the information, still not pass on any information, didn't contact me. They knew I have his telephone number. Now I know where he lives as well. You only confessed that the other day to me, because he doesn't want to be a burden on the state. Come on, let's help each other out.
All right, okay. Good to hear from you, David. Thanks for being with us today. We're on Mannin Line, 12:20. Any thoughts on the matter? And Robert's with us. Hi, Robert.
Hi, I try and keep my ears open today. How are you?
Good, yeah, fine, thanks.
So I was just thinking about the My Cards, running around a few places in the lower levels of society, like Graya. I suppose next step would be a place, but I don't go there. There's a few, there's at least half a dozen people I've come across who are under the slight delusion that it's just going to be for new subscriptions in January, but it is actually coming to the end in January, isn't it?
Well, it comes to the end October next year, I think. My Card does. But I mean, if you register, it will go from you literally as soon as you've done it. But if you don't register, then it'll finish next October.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much of an argument to say that given bank account details over to the DHSC or social services is going to, greatly impinge the situation in terms of sharing information and stuff like that. I think it's menial stuff. But I just think that, just to give a heads up, there are a dozen people I've come across and they just don't have bank accounts. I don't think the credit union really facilitates much instead of loans off actual, Social Security payments. So it's kind of people are going to get trapped. They're not going to be able to process their thing. I'm not against the system or anything like that. I'm quite for it. I think it's a good move. I think people should have bank accounts. But I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of people falling through the cracks.
Okay. All right. Oh, thanks, Robert. Good to hear from you.
Okay. And another thing, the last thing was, I think there's a certain kind of culture in the post office of fear, to be honest with you, to a certain extent. And I was wondering if that's going to be addressed at some stage. I think it's a bit of a men's club, and the people who operate up there, if a postman comes to your door and says, well, sorry, I can't accept this, then they have to phone the people up in the post office and say, well, can we accept this back? And then there's a tush for tush, kind of like a tat for tat, and kind of like a back and forth about, well, we're not sure we can take this back and stuff like that, and you're messing around with our time. And I remember being under great stress for getting a parcel from America, which I didn't actually pay for. And, I had to be sent back. And the amount of stress that was put on me by the post office worker, because he's just a worker at the end of the day, but he had to call in, and the post office guy was like, yeah, but, you have to sign for it. I was like, well, I'm not signing for it. And I just think there's an upper management issue at the post office in terms of the culture of fear. And I just wonder if that could be addressed. It is a real thing.
Okay, all right, Robert. Thanks for pointing that out today. I've not heard much about that, but we take that from you. Thanks for calling in today. A message in also about the air traffic control, just to say they've had enough time to sort out the air traffic control. I know it takes a long time to train air traffic controllers, but just as the caller yesterday was saying that air traffic controllers who move to the Isle of Man from the UK pay less tax. So it is financially attractive to work on the Isle of Man. So isn't Ronaldsway an attractive place to work? Notes from yesterday just saying that MHKs do get an uplift when they become a minister. They don't get an additional salary to be a political member of a department, whereas ministers get a 15% increase on top of their salary. It's about 72,000. Or is it 75,907? So a minister gets £87,293 per annum. And well, that's the message that came from yesterday. Anyway, any thoughts on that? And I think the news is Stu Peters has resigned his position in DOI, I think, to let Michelle Hayward appoint her own people. So that you won't lose any money because you don't get an additional salary to be a political member. And Peter's with us now. Hi, Peter.
Oh, hello, Andy. Now, I promise faithfully, this is the very last time I'm going to bring up about the assisted dying bill.
Right.
And I shall stick to that. There's two things here. First of all, there is an amendment which has not yet been discussed before the Legislative Council, which will actually severely reduce the effectiveness of the 5-year rule. You know that one of the things was a person had got to be ordinarily resident in the island for 5 years. Yeah. Right. Now, there's an alternative to that, which in effect blows holes in it. It says the second or has been ordinarily resident in the island for not less than 1 year before being first informed of the diagnosis that the person is terminally ill. So the 5-year rule won't apply very much because, as I read this, then if a person has been in the island for 1 year and then receives a diagnosis that and remember these diagnoses are very almost impossible to say what's going to happen within a year, but has a diagnosis of a terminal illness that will take effect of death diagnosed within 1 year. So then they don't have to be in the island 5 years at all. After 1 year's residence, then anyone in the island who is so diagnosed would then be able to avail themselves of the bill. So that makes really quite effectively the 5-year rule virtually redundant.
And to reiterate that, where does it say that?
Well, I can't give you chapter and verse because I'm just reading the amendments. It's in Clause 4, and they're rewording Clause 4. Well, the proposal, it hasn't been discussed yet because they're taking evidence today. The proposal is to amend the wording of Clause 4. Now, at the moment, Clause 4, in effect, says you must be resident over 18 and you must be resident in the island. You must have been resident in the island for 5 years, full stop. So I suppose a person could have come to the island before he was 18, but as I read it, once you get to 18, you've got to have already had 5 years residency before you can avail yourselves of the bill if it becomes law. Do you get it?
Yeah. I understand.
Now, what they're amending that to, they're adding an alternative to that because it's restating that ordinarily resident in the island for less than 5 years, but it now has the disjunctive or has been ordinarily resident in the island for not less than 1 year before being first informed of the diagnosis that the person is terminally ill. So the 5-year rule has now been dramatically watered down, and so in effect you're virtually back to the 1-year rule, which was what it was originally before they altered it. And so I just think that's immediately a matter of great concern, especially in view of the fact that it's unknown at the moment what attitude the United Kingdom is going to take. And just suppose the United Kingdom does not go ahead with the proposed bill there, and nobody really knows what will happen on Friday, then that leaves the Isle of Man not only out on a limb, but you weaken the whole essence of the bill to stop anyone coming here to avail themselves of the legislation. If you're going to say, right, when they came to the island, they hadn't got a terminal illness, but if they've been ordinarily resident here for 1 year and then are diagnosed with a terminal illness, they can avail themselves of the bill. So that really blows holes through the 5-year rule. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, and also the fact is that their whole point before about it being bomb-proof, about the legislation being impervious to challenge, surely this will facilitate a challenge.
Well, but there's a more important one, and this is the reason why I'm sort of ringing in as the final thing, because it says it all. There is a body of legal opinion which is warning the members of Parliament that it is conceivable that in due course, if they were to pass a bill, whatever they wrote into it, however ferocious the safeguards, it would be open to challenge ultimately before the Court of Human Rights, and it would be open to challenge under Article 14. Now, Article 14 deals with discrimination, and Article 14 is not worded tightly, it's worded very loosely, and that means that it's open to a lot of interpretation by the court, and that's why the court has come up with some very unusual interpretations. It says that it's the anti-discrimination clause, which says that you mustn't discriminate on any ground such as, and then it gives several grounds that people might try to discriminate on. But then at the end, it says, after that, or any other ground, or any other status. So it talks about race, colour, religion and so on. You mustn't discriminate on those. But then it adds these words, or other status. Now, I can see how the Court of Human Rights could use that one. They could say, well, the grounds that they give for not discriminating are only examples, the way it's worded, because it says such as, and then it says or other status. Now, what I believe the legal opinion is saying is that if you provide an assisted suicide sewer service, and I'm giving it its correct legal name as opposed to the other name that's the popular one that's put about, then if you put a lot of restrictions on that, which of course all the safeguards would, or some of them would put restrictions, they've got to have terminal illness, they've got to be this, that and the other, then it's quite conceivable that the discriminatory challenge would run like this. Well, we fall into another status. We haven't got a terminal illness that's going to take effect within 1 year, but we just quite frankly, as is coming before. I believe before Holland, where they're sort of talking about whether persons over 75 could just sort of decide that they'd had enough of life, and that's it, they'd like to go, then, quite frankly, someone quite conceivably could take a case, and it could go all the way through the courts, on the grounds that other nations haven't provided for something like that. In other words, every time you go down this route, and Holland's gone down far, far away from where it's proposed for the Isle of Man, that eventually someone can argue that our law, with all its safeguards, is discriminatory against people who cannot come within the terms of the 1 year with a terminal illness. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, this is splitting hairs, isn't it?
Yeah, well, what would happen then is that the legal opinion is of this view, and very humbly I concur with it, because I know how these things work. They've said that even if you had a case that went all the way through the courts in the United Kingdom and went to the Supreme Court and they didn't accept that argument, it's always then possible to take a case on to the European Court, and the European Court's verdict can override, to that extent, the Supreme Court of England insofar as convention rights go. And moreover, as I understand it, and I haven't seen the full content of the legal opinion, I've only just seen a newspaper report, which is obviously going to be inconclusive. I would imagine that once it wouldn't necessarily have to be a challenge from Britain. It could be a challenge from any other country that's in the European Convention area. And once the European Court has made a decision on that, then that really makes it quite clear that that's going to affect all those who are signatories to the European Convention. Or put it another way, if they take a case to the European Court, then they will give an answer in accordance with the answer that they've already given. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it would immediately affect the right across Europe. It would have a dramatic effect. Now, the only way that you can avoid that, and this comes back to what I've been saying all along, if you don't pass a bill in the first place, then you can't be charged with discrimination, because you can't discriminate in terms of a law that doesn't exist. And that is a very powerful, cogent argument. Where everyone's coming from is don't go down this road, because if you don't go down it, then whatever challenge is brought against legislation in other countries cannot affect you, because you haven't got that law. But once you've got that law, then you are open to the effects of whatever the European Court might determine. And so my final word on this subject is really be warned, be warned, be warned.
Peter, I appreciate it, as always. And if you do feel like contributing on this subject in the future, please do. We always welcome it. Okay.
Very kind, but I think I shall stick to what I've said. I think I've said it all. Thank you very much, Andy.
Good to hear from you. Bye-bye. It's 24 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio with Mannin Line.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
Yes! This Christmas, give them something they'll really love, like the iPhone 16, Apple Watch or a Samsung tablet. Discover incredible value bundles exclusively at Shaw. Plus, get an M&S voucher worth up to £200 when you combine your mobile and broadband plans. Perfect for a Christmas to remember. Visit us in-store or online at shaw.com/Christmas. T's and C's apply.
Make sure you're ready for Christmas with Manx Glass and Glazing. Whether it's splashbacks for the kitchen, a glass tabletop for the big meal on the big day, or getting the house ready with mirrors and picture frame glass, Manx Glass and Glazing are here to help. Order now to make sure everything is here and ready in time for Christmas. Simply call Manx Glass and Glazing today on 674 573 or call into Snugborough Trading Estate, Braddon. Make sure you're ready for Christmas with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Look forward to a cleaner, greener future by switching to gas with Isle of Man Energy. You'll get a future fuel-ready smart boiler with smart controls and 10 years servicing included. And on top of reducing your local carbon emissions with a state-of-the-art boiler and cleaner fuel, Isle of Man Energy will remove that dirty old oil tank, all from just £25.20 per month. Think greener and find out more today. Visit isleofmanenergy.im and click Switch to Gas.
Make memories this Christmas when you choose a real tree from Robinson's. At Robinson's Christmas Tree Park, you'll find a superb selection, including traditional, non-drop and potted Christmas trees, along with magical wreaths and mistletoe. The excitement of Christmas really begins when you choose your tree from Robinson's Christmas Tree Park on Cool Road. Now open, with netting and delivery service available.
Tonight here on Manx Radio at 5:30, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for another countryside programme.
We get an update on farming life from auctioneer Peter Quayle.
I talked to Nigel Taylor about the up-and-coming winter exhibition of the Ramsey and Onken Fur and Feather Society, and I also catch up with David Beard, the CEO of the Isle of Man Fish Producers Organisation, to find out how the King's Scallop season is going so far.
That's all in countryside tonight at 5:30 here on Manx Radio. And don't forget, you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
22 minutes before 1, and Dick said, I like Dr. Haywood and Miss Christian, but it'll hardly fill the island with confidence when Dr. Haywood's only experience with roads and the DOI was planting daffodils to fill potholes, and other than being able to bring us designer bandages and full-length surgical gowns, I can't see what Claire Christian will be able to do differently to any other health minister. Manx Care is walking all over government, and surely this won't change it. So how can two ladies with zero experience be expected to revive the fortune of two of the worst performing departments? It's unbelievable, and surely it brings the hospital closer than ever to being in special measures. And there'll be less daffodils around the B&Q after the DOI have them all. Thank you, Dick. Well, they're both accomplished professional women, and presumably that's why they're there, is that they know how many beans make 5, and they know how to put things together. So we'll wait, we watch, and we see. It's Betty. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Andy. Now, I just want to say one thing, really. I've been listening to the caller, and I think we should change the name of Mannin Line to Peter Line.
Oh, Betty Line.
No, Peter Line. I don't say very much. That's all, really. But I don't agree with Peter at all.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing about Mannin Line. We can disagree, and we do so, with respect. We don't have arguments. We have discussions, and people put their view. And sometimes people put their view forward very forcibly. But we're all friends.
Anyway, it's just my little joke, okay?
Good to hear from you. Thank you for that, Betty, on the Betty Line. And I want to go to Vivian now. Hi, Vivian.
Hiya. Listening to Peter, I think back to the members of the Legislative Council talking. One member was talking, and he said he had been very ill, and that because he'd only been here 4 years plus a few months, he wouldn't have been able to have euthanasia. I don't know who it was, and I'm not bothered about that. Now, if you take that and you reverse it to what Peter was talking about, I think it's murder.
Why do you think that, Vivian?
Because if you've only been here a few months and somebody says, oh, we'll kill you, we'll give you euthanasia, you're not ever going to recover, then it's murder. And I'm sorry, I don't approve of the change. It was all right the way that it was, that people had to be here 5 years living on the island, and at least that gives them time to understand the Isle of Man as well.
Right, okay. So you think this change to 1 year is a backward step?
Very much so. And I think stay with what has been talked about and gone through the House of Keys. And I think the Legislative Council, if this is their idea, they want to sit and think about it very hard again.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling today.
That's all right.
Cheers now. 18 minutes to 1, and Mike's with us now. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Andy. We've spoken before. And although I'm very much for the assisted dying law, I totally understand Peter's against it, and that's fair enough. I actually agree with him. It should be the 5 years. It shouldn't become a tourist, if you like, way out. It should just be for those people on the island who have had enough, like some of my relatives who would have loved to have been put out of their misery because they were in such pain, at their choice. I thought all the safeguards we were putting in was going to do this.
And that they were very clear about this. They said, you know, that it's hard and fast, it's going to be 5 years, and that's that. And this seems to be a kind of back doorway.
Yeah, it shouldn't be watered down at all. Peter mentioned, like, the European courts. Well, I'm very much anti-Europe. I always have been. My parents didn't sign up to become members of the European Union. They signed up for the common market, just for trade, when they voted back in the 70s. So the European courts, they shouldn't have any say in it at all, in my opinion. I know I can't, and we can't influence that because of various things that are tied up. So it is worrying what Peter's saying. So yes, he's got his opinion, I've got mine, they differ, but they should have all these safeguards in place. And just for someone to know, I'm going to die, but I can't get it done in my own country, so I'll go to the Isle of Man. I don't think that's right. We should just be looking after our own.
Okay, all right. Appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Cheers.
Good to hear from you, Mike. 16 minutes before 1. Andy dropped a note in. When's Peter Murcott standing for Keys? Well, he has done in the past. Who knows? Well, 2 years' time, a little less than 2 years' time, 2026, September 2026 is when that will happen. Right, text, email, call, WhatsApp, and also I just want to bring this to your attention, and it's regarding Christmas. And David was talking about older people at Christmas, and this is something for young people at Christmas. The Salvation Army are doing a festive toy appeal. Salvation Army is collecting new toys for children from birth to the age of 16. And you may have heard the story on Manx Radio. The donations must be received by this Saturday, the 30th. Donation points are at Isle of Man Bank, the Entertainer in the Strand Centre, also collection boxes at Nobles Hospital, Ramsey Cottage Hospital, and the Southern and Western Wellbeing Centres. Last year, the donation supported 499 children with parcels for Christmas. And I'll just put this to you. You can, take or leave it, with however many grains of salt you want. But it would be a distressing thought thinking that there will be children waking up without presents on the Isle of Man this Christmas. Now, if you've supported the Sally Army in the past and are going to do it again, well, it's up to you. But children don't ask to be born. And Christmas is a joyous time. So if you can, if you could. I'm not saying you should or you have to. But if you could.
Hello, Isle of Man. At Co-op, we believe it's wrong to lower prices on things you buy least. So we lower the prices on the things you buy most, as well as giving you other exclusive member benefits. Plus, we now deliver to the whole island, so great deals can be delivered to your doorstep. So join Co-op to become not just a member, but an owner and have your say on how we're run. Co-op, owned by you, right by you. £1 membership fee applies. See full T's and C's at coop.co.uk/terms.
Every day, Manx Petroleum is fueling the heartbeat of our island. Going with the flow, we keep homes warm and businesses running. 100% Manx owned and the largest family-run distributor, our customer services are at the heart of your community. And as the island's only provider of oil deliveries, boilers and tank installation services altogether, there's no need to shop around. Manx Petroleum, always here for you, because this island is our home too. Visit mp.im.
Employers, having trouble with staff and need reliable advice? Employees, are you treated fairly in the workplace or do you have a grievance?
The workplace can be problematic on both sides. For any work-related legal issue, contact the employment law experts, Man Benham. They advise employers and staff on all work-related problems with sound professional advice and a transparent fee policy. To arrange your free consultation at Man Benham, call today on 639 350.
Man Benham, here for you.
Ocean Views is the perfect venue for your Christmas party. Whether small groups of family and friends or corporate bookings, Ocean Views can cater for parties of up to 120 people. With excellent choices on food, from a delicious 1, 2 or 3-course Christmas feast, available from the 28th of November, to your favourite non-festive dishes from the chef's seasonal menu, with free parking and wheelchair access. See the menus and book now for Christmas. Find Ocean Views on Facebook or at oceanviews.im.
This Christmas, we're spreading festive cheer and championing local businesses by encouraging you to shop local. Here at Manx Radio, we're teaming up with Love Manx, who are running a Shop Local Christmas campaign to give you the chance to win a £100 voucher to spend at any independent local business. To win, text us now on 166 177 and tell us your favourite local business or producer and what festive goodies are catching your eye this year. And we'll announce the winner on this week's Feel Good Friday from 3 o'clock. Think local first this Christmas with Love Manx and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Hey, Faster Mai, it's 11 minutes now before 1. It's Tuesday lunchtime, live from the Isle of Man. My concern, says WhatsApp 717, about doing all this stuff online is giving more scammers, giving us up to more scammers, but the government don't care. Well, they say if you take all the precautions, you shouldn't get scammed, but they still happen, don't they? Thank you, Paul in Castletown. Good to hear from you. And also, Nick, thanks for your point as well. If the Manx government allows this law of assisted dying into law, then our grandparents may as well have not fought World War II. It's a case of eugenics, says this correspondent. This is 045. Come on. I think Peter's correct on all this because he is, I think, acutely aware of the legal nuances and varying ins and outs of what, to my view, may as well be in Old French or medieval Chinese or ancient Greek. So, really, yes, we get the point. Thank you, 045. You're with Peter on this. The fact that it doesn't seem like it's as watertight as they said it was going to be. I wonder if the new DOI minister will complete the halfway horse tram, says Will. Well, we'll try and ask. Maybe. I see the children's centres appealing for warm clothes for children. It's heartbreaking there are children suffering on the Isle of Man. Well, particularly at this time of year. It's it's Christmas, and follow whichever charitable notion you want. Now, I'll just get to just a couple of things I want to raise with you, but there's some more messages that it's a very simple concept. People who don't want it. So it'll go the same as the bus routes and the pubs that nobody goes to. We're talking about post offices, that they may be on the way out. So with the intervention of emails over 2 decades ago, I think it's pretty obvious to most of us, except those in the post office, that regular mail was going to diminish, and with the advent of the likes of Amazon, etc., parcel post will be on the increase. It doesn't take Einstein to work out that you need to adjust your business model to suit. And we're only just talking about it now. It's typical of the thinking of the Isle of Man government and the government-operated departments, says S. The fact that they are moving from delivering letters to delivering parcels. Well, where would they be without Amazon? Just look at that. I can't get my head around the sheer level of roadworks on the Isle of Man at the moment, says Stefan. Doesn't anybody plan ahead of these jobs instead of putting multiple roadworks in close proximity to one another? Which overpaid member of the House of Clowns, House of Keys, is responsible for this? They're Stefan's words, by the way, in interest. Maybe the loss of Main Street banks and the scrapping of my car provides a reason for the post office to offer banking accounts, says G. Well, I'm presuming that they've looked at all this. The post offices must be maintained as a priority, says Pat on 223. Taking services like pensions away from them is a mistake. Banks are reducing services, and the Isle of Man Bank only has Athol Street that deals with cash, and that's only 2 counters. Customers using Isle of Man Bank Athol Street are queuing for up to an hour to get served, with parking limit of 30 minutes outside. It's just not on, says Pat. They do have free tea and coffee, I think, mostly. Do you think Michelle Hayward's going to be planting poinsettias in the potholes for Christmas? She also commented on the sound bus service before being made a minister. I look forward to what happens with her new powers, says David. It should be a concern that we can't attract and keep professionals like air traffic controllers, yet the government has based its economic strategy on bringing another 5,000 well-paid people here, says G. I just wonder, I don't know, nobody's come up with words of one syllable as to why air traffic controllers come to the Isle of Man and don't stay. I'm presuming air traffic control, the salary is much of a muchness wherever you go. And with the Isle of Man tax regime, surely it's worth more on the Isle of Man. So what is it about Ronaldsway and the air traffic control tower that we just can't seem to get air traffic controllers? Have you noticed Tynwald's done a lot of shuffling of ministers lately? Well, MHKs want to rise but are scared to award themselves a big one while the rest of us suffer. So, conspiracy. Oh, we've got a conspiracy there. Thank you, 223. And just another message, just want to get in. I posted in the same envelope a Christmas card and a birthday card yesterday to Canada, only small size, cost me £5.51p to get to Canada. Isle of Man Airport's not a great place to work, says 666. The management there is way out of their depth and capability, with no people skills and don't deal with anything. So the air traffic control issue will continue to go on for a long time. We've tried to get to the bottom of the airport, really, and obviously the Gary Cobb is going. The air traffic director, the airport director is going. We have an interim now. Jeff Pugh, who's the boss of air traffic control, is in charge for the interregnum. So what's going to happen in the future? Now, it's been mentioned on this programme that, of course, the airport isn't just the airport. Bits of it belong to different people. So the airport director didn't have control over certain things and can't. And remember, when airlines want to come in, they come in really at their pleasure. We can't force airlines to come here. So when people say we need to get more airlines here, that's like saying, I want world peace. I mean, not on the same level, but we all want more airlines. It's just how you get them, what you offer to them. Remember, these people aren't charities. They have to make money. And an aircraft, I do know this much, that an aircraft only makes money when it's in the air. So when you've got paying passengers, aircraft make no money whatsoever. In fact, they cost money sitting on the apron, which is the problem and the reason that lots of the late flights into Ronaldsway get cancelled, purely because the airlines don't want their planes sitting at Ronaldsway when they'd rather have them somewhere else to make an early start the next day. How we get round this? Well, this is Michelle Haywood's problem now. So she'll be getting on with that for Ronaldsway, as well as sorting out all sorts of other things in the DOI portfolio. Colin said, Andy, just a quick note about the post office debate. I worked as a post office for a time. I was staggered about how many people asked counter staff for advice on often quite serious and personal matters. We were always happy to try and help where we could, but with the continued closures of local post offices, this source of help will no longer be available. Just a thought. Now that's a very good point, Colin. We think they're just post offices. We think they're just a place where you buy stamps and get postal services, but they are a lot more. So quite how much we're prepared to value what the neighbourhood post office does will probably say a lot about us as a society and this as a government. That's it for Mannin Line today. Back tomorrow with another open line. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Answer phones on 682-631. Email manninline@manxradio.com out of hours. And enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
WINT